Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Photo Mishmash. This one being broadcast live April 28th, 2020. We've got the new Mavic Air 2 to talk about. We've got your images to review and give you some tips and tricks in Lightroom. And I'm so glad to be once again joined by my good friends, David Carr and Steve Scurich. We're going to be talking about our favorite travel destinations and memories, and because we're limited in our traveling right now, so why not spend a few moments reminiscing? And if you're watching live, I hope when we get to that segment you will fill up the chat with places that you've been to that you love and would highly recommend as awesome photo hotspots, or places that are on your bucket list, and we'll read a couple of those. And I got a couple emails today with some people sharing those thoughts. So welcome everybody. We'll start with David Carr. David, welcome. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I don't know what else to say. I've been painting my basement all day, so the paint fumes are getting to me.
All right. All right. That's great. You're getting tasks done. Now, right before the show started, we were talking a little bit about April feeling like it is flying by, and it feels like we just did this show.
Yeah.
And the common meme everybody's sharing is Groundhog Day. We all kind of feel like we're stuck in Groundhog Day just a little bit.
Yeah. It does feel that way. I don't know what it feels like where you guys live or where anybody in the chat lives, but it, in a scary way, because I have been getting out a little bit, going to the store, going to the grocery store. It just kind of feels like everything's moving back to normal here, which on the one hand, that feels awesome. And then on the other hand, I'm like, wait a second, are we jumping the gun here? I don't know. I just, I know it's different in every state, but so in a way it's been it's feeling like things are easing up, but then I go back and read reports of what's going on all over the world and in the country. And I'm like, no, it's still pretty serious.
You should post on Facebook and ask for people's opinions on this topic.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing that.
Yeah, that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, anybody got any opinions about anything they want to share?
Is anybody an expert on anything at all they want to share?
Yeah. My friend list is full of political and medical experts all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. Did you see? I posted something recently that somebody made up all these little badges that were like certified Facebook. I
love that. I commented medical that one. It was great.
Yeah, that's right. You did comment on that.
Yeah. You need to get Facebook officially on board so we can just kind of one click add them as our little profile frame, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Steve, how about you? Do you feel like you're stuck in Groundhog Day? How are things going for you?
Yeah, today I do. So Carr is down in Georgia, and you guys have kind of opened things up rather quickly, to the opinion of many, I'm sure.
Yes.
Ohio is different. We were one of the first to shut down, and it's still pretty shut down until it's May 1st, a couple days. And I was out and about a little bit today. It's just a little depressing, to be honest with you. Everybody's walking around with masks on, which is a good thing, I guess, myself included. And, it's just depressing. It's like, a bunch of autonomous robots just kind of doing their errand and getting out of there. You don't have people just browsing or laughing and hanging out in parks and stuff. So I'm ready for that stuff to happen, but obviously I want it to be safe. So last week I was on a real high. David had just gotten home, and we had some great weather and stuff, and today it's just dreary and kind of depressing around here. I hate to say that to you guys, but it hit me a bit today.
Yeah, well, it's real.
I'm sorry. We're here for you, man, as long as it's the chat room too.
Yeah.
But
gentlemen, we always kind of start this off briefly. What are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking Gin Daisy, which I think I was drinking on a previous show, and Chris so nicely made this for me. So thank you, Chris, for making that. It's basically a gin and tonic with like a splash of grenadine and a little lemon juice, although it's closer to a gin and tonic than a Gin Daisy.
That's nice.
But I love saying Gin Daisy.
Yeah, of course you do. Carr.
I just want my next band is going to be called Gin Daisy.
Yeah, it's great. That's great.
We'll open for the Gin Blossoms. I'm drinking Ye Old Fashioned, so it's
nice.
Classic. It's good though. It turned out nice. I have a great simple recipe.
Just like you, a classic old fashioned. Well, I am celebrating the fact that we have Lars from Metallica right in the middle channel here with us. And,
man.
So I'm drinking Black and Rye. This is Metallica's
I love it.
A little advertisement for them. Maybe they'll somebody's watching and they'll sponsor me because I love this stuff. So yeah, that's the name of my next band, Blackened.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Flipped.
Flipped. Actually, yeah, I think
Flipped.
I think Blackened's going to get overridden by Flip It.
Flip It.
Yeah.
I actually don't know how to control who comes up. I think it's whoever is more timely. So you can tell whoever signs on latest is the furthest to the right, Steve.
Yeah.
But I'm scared. I might be able to click and drag thumbnails down below, but I'm scared to test that at this moment because it might log Steve off and then we'll never see him again.
No, we got a Lars sandwich going on tonight. This is great.
A Lars sandwich.
Look, I even have drumsticks. I mean, look at
Did you touch my drumstick?
Hey, here's a little piece of trivia. You know whose stick this was?
Oh boy.
Neil Peart.
No way, really?
Yeah, this is one of his sticks. It's all chewed up. You can see, well, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but he actually played this stick. See, it says Rush. And then I have Stuart Copeland from The Police, one of his sticks that's got a little break in it and stuff. So
pretty cool. Yeah, that is cool.
Dude, I'm in your house spilling bacon grease all over your Grammys, and you don't even show me that you have a Neil Peart drumstick?
I forgot I had it. We had a bus driver years ago that was Neil's driver, and this was a gift to me from him. So
nice. Yeah. That's huge.
Rest in peace, Neil.
Yeah.
Charlie in chat wants to know, is this American? The show?
American?
We're all based in America, so I guess so. None of us have.
I'm drinking Blackened rye whiskey.
Neil Peart was Canadian, though, so.
All right. So throwing that drumstick in there moves us a little further north.
It does.
Yeah. And you guys on the East Coast, Steve's in Ohio. I'm trying to think. Maybe that puts us up in upstate New York. I don't know. Somewhere up in that region. Okay. So let's move on to the part of the show where we just chit chat a little bit more about what we've been up to over the last week. Anything in particular you guys want to share or talk about?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, so I posted a photo that I was telling you guys last week about some photos I'd taken of my wife in the backyard. We just decided to do a little impromptu photo shoot. So I posted one of those and she posted a bunch of them and got a really good response. People said they looked like magazine worthy. So that was a nice pat on the back. It felt good. Thank you. I thought they turned out really nice. And so it was fun to just edit something, just to have something, that I actually had to work on. And I've been working on a video. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's a lovely photo.
Yes.
Thank you. I struggle to shoot in the woods. I don't love the green a lot of times, and so
you'd mentioned that on the show before. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so I had to play around with the color a little bit, and I was using one soft box with a speed light in it for this, so which definitely helps if you're going to shoot in the woods with the weird dappled light and everything. It helps to have an external light source. So, but yeah, I was happy with that. And then I've been working on. I shot a bunch of video clips when I was in Tanzania back in August, and I'm finally putting that stuff together and realizing I went back and watched your video, Toby, on shooting video and the 3 videos you posted recently, and they were so helpful. And it was so funny because as I was watching and you were talking about the importance of short clips, especially if you're hand holding. And I was like, wow, that was my problem. Because there's so much garbage footage that I shot. It was so close to being good, but it was so shaky. So I'm trying to just narrow it down to just the highlights that look good and let it be that. So that's been fun.
Good, cool. I'm looking forward to that, and not to put you on the spot or anything, but maybe how you edit this picture right here of your wife.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about doing that for my next one. I've just uploaded one today. I'm waiting for it to get to the full resolution in YouTube, and then I'll share it. But I think I am going to do that one next. I wanted to do a portrait for the next edit, so I think it'd be fun.
Very nice, very nice. And of course, you can follow David Carr on Instagram, where he'll post those from time to time. And along with the show notes linked right down below is your YouTube channel as well.
Right.
So folks interested, go check that out. You've got the nice How I Edit series going, and I'm looking forward to this next one when it's available.
Thank you. Thank you.
Real quick, before we get to you, Steve, you just reminded me, Susan Michael, who's been a guest instructor with us before on some McKay trips, is putting together some presentation and wanted footage from our balloon ride in Tanzania in 2016 and the polar bear swimming in 2018. So I went and dug that footage out, and the Tanzania footage, so shaky. And I'm just saying to myself, if I'm watching this back, hold the effing camera still for 5 seconds, Toby. What? Why is it recording right now while you're walking over there to the Jeep?
Yeah. I have I have one clip that was like 12 minutes long where the camera was on and I didn't realize it. And it's just dangling to my side.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm like, well, there's 12 minutes I just took out of my video. So,
Yep. I got those too. How about you, Steve? You shot any shaky footage lately?
No, we affectionately refer to that in Tanzania as a Tanzania massage. It involves when you're driving down the road in the Land Rover. If you're just walking around, Toby, but that was 2016. You were still a novice. You were finding your wings.
Mm-hmm.
So, not the expert that you are today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Also, that was PK, pre-cause.
That's true. Yes, I miss Kaz so much. Chris really nicely helped me a little bit the other morning, and she was great. But I might have said to her at one point, I miss Kaz.
Man.
For those of you who don't know, he's actually come in as one of our instructors on these tours. But he has done a lot of filming for Toby with PhotoRec and a lot of editing and stuff like that. He's just a super talented video guy. And there's even, I think, out to Penn members, there's a video tutorial that he is coming up.
Yep, and he's got a couple more coming out that I'm excited for.
Yeah. So anyway, what I've been up to, not a whole lot. Nothing on my Instagram account. On Facebook a few days ago, though, I did post about kind of a little blurb on why you should hire a professional photographer for your real estate listing.
Yes.
And I don't know why I was so compelled to do this. I shot a couple of homes as coming soon, and I've got full shoots this week. So by the end of the week, I should have both of those shot. We're just waiting on the stagers to finish up. But anyway, I just got compelled to show like a before and after. Basically, the shot right out of my camera, what it looked like, and then after the way I edited it. And just wanted to implore people to spend, a few $100s on professional images for your biggest asset, most likely your largest asset. It just boggles my mind why somebody would try to save a few $100 when it could cost them thousands in showings and multiple offers and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So, I'm very proud to say that. And really, I don't want this to come across as bragging, because I think most professional photographers in real estate can say this. My images will help sell a house much faster than if you just go out there with your iPhone and, brighten them up a little bit.
Sure, absolutely.
You're looking at the angles and possible, doing some work in the sky, making it appealing, making it attractive. All the shopping, especially today with coronavirus and stuff going on, everybody is shopping online. So anyway, that was kind of my soapbox for the week. And there it is. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and this is an actual area where you're an expert with, so I'm okay being friends with you sharing this content. Yeah. So and again, you're not. We talk about this fairly often. You are not editing these pictures in a way that misrepresents the property. You're just editing them in a way that represents them in the best possible light.
Yeah, and I will say there's a lot of professional photographers out there shooting real estate that really either misrepresent a property or they don't quite have the skills to properly represent a property, or in such a way that would really drive business. So it is a bit of a fine line. I will do some sky replacements occasionally. This particular set of photographs is the coming soon. I did replace the sky. It had a nice sky, but it just didn't have a big impact. I wanted something that was a little warmer. I replaced the sky, but very, very important to do that relatively subtly and make sure you position the sun where the sun actually is.
Right.
Make sure that if you're replacing the sky on the exterior shot, you do it with the other exterior shots, the same sky, and then you can tweak how that fits in and stuff. I generally use, what's it called? Luminar 4 for sky replacement. But only when it's really necessary. So, and then, you know, I kind of accentuated the sunburst there, but it was there.
Yeah, sure.
Things like power lines and landscaping and stuff like that, you don't want to misrepresent the property. You just want to show it in the best light possible.
You're not planting some daisies in the front yard.
No. Nope.
No. And so just a reminder, of course, you can follow Steve at Scurich on Instagram and link to your professional Facebook page too, right down below where you can see these side-by-side pictures. Yeah. Nice. And that's actually a great lead in, Steve, to what I've been up to, because I want to ask you, the Mavic Air 2 has been announced. I released a video yesterday kind of going over the specs, how it compares to the Mavic Mini and the Mavic Pro. And spoiler, it compares very nicely to the Pro at half the price. There are some benefits to the Pro, but for most people, I think this Air 2 is a fantastic value. Yep. Are you thinking about picking it up?
I am going to get one.
Ooh.
Yeah. I just yesterday, so I watched your video. Excellent video, by the way.
I still haven't watched it, confession.
Yeah, it's great. But, you know, for me, I was debating between the Mini or the Air 2. And Toby brought up some great points in the video about, you know, the Mini is JPEG only, and you don't have obstacle avoidance. You don't have OcuSync. You don't need the FAA registration, which I didn't know that about the Mini, but that's not really a big deal.
No, it's not.
So yesterday, I actually found a company that provides all the lessons for the FAA commercial drone license. Oh. And I'm going to start that process probably tomorrow. I'm going to sign up, and it's about a 2-week process. And then you have to, you know, because it's kind of pointless for me to just do it as a hobbyist. I want to use it for my business.
Right.
So.
Sure. That's a great point. The Northrops have a free video out that is very, very good and covers a lot of that content. Oh, that's actually, I haven't done it. I'm in this gray area where, you know, I'm not really flying for my business. I'm flying mostly as recreation.
Yeah.
But I should. I absolutely should. One, to have the experience, and two, because, I want to be completely on the right side of the law. And I think some people could argue but flying drones is part of what you do. Yeah. So this might be a great time. You take a lot of good notes and then pass them my way. Okay.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. It's, I think the course is like $150 and then the exam is $150. So it's not chump change, but they guarantee that you pass the first time. If you don't, they give you a refund. And I need a schedule that kind of keeps you on track and stuff. And you're learning a lot about aviation stuff that is totally foreign to me. I mean, David McKay has his license. He would understand all of it, but I have no clue. Yeah. So, but I need it if I'm going to do it for commercial use, I have to have it.
Sure.
But the Mavic Air 2, getting back to the product itself, that's the best deal out there for me.
It looks pretty incredible. I mean, and I've got the Air, the first one, and it's been great. But anybody want to buy a Mavic Air?
Yeah. Actually, Carr, why don't you order the 2 and then I'll buy the Air off you.
Mine's red. It's red and it's got my logo. It's awesome.
I wish you got a white one, but hey, we can.
Spray paint, man.
Wait, Steve, you just passed up red?
I know red is my favorite color, but just splashes of red. Just
Wait, your Jeep, does it just have splashes of red? What's going on here?
My Jeep does, yeah. It's black.
Black and red, man. The best color.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking that you had a red Jeep.
I did. I used to have a red.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So it looks very good. Go watch my video if you haven't. But I'll just say that I think there are still some reasons some users should look at the Mavic 2 Pro. But for most of us, what the Mavic Air 2 offers is more than enough and pretty dang impressive. And in some cases does beat the Mavic 2 Pro specs at half the price.
Incredible.
One of the things that I'll say about the original Air, and this didn't make it into the video, but it was noisy, mostly not volume, but that pitch. It has a very high pitch, much higher than other drones. And I didn't make mention of that, but this looks, and from what I've heard from those who've had it so far, it's much more lower pitched and not nearly as annoying.
Cool.
But it is kind of the Mavic Air original. You said the white one, or no, the red.
I've got the red. Yeah.
They had some cool designs, and now we have it is basically a shrunk down. I don't know where the bigger drone went. It's a enlarged version of the Mini, or a shrunk down version of the Pro. It is almost identical, except its size and what it looks like out on the gimbal end is a little different.
Sure.
You could doesn't D brand make skins or something for those things? You could dress them up. I think Frank had some really cool stuff on his in Alaska, if I remember.
Yeah. You can totally put stickers on your professional product if you want.
Yeah,
I think they're cool.
Like your skateboard, like Billabong.
Yeah, man. Throw some Rob Rosscop stickers on it.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? OcuSync. Toby, in your video, you really made that sound like a huge selling point compared to the Wi-Fi sync. And I've been with you so many times in the field where you've lost contact with the drone. And I'm always biting my nails when that happens. I can only imagine what that does to you. Is OcuSync kind of a game changer?
It's a big difference. And just rock solid in this latest. So the original experience, mostly what you're talking about, lost connection, was the original OcuSync and or flying off of the ship in the Arctic. And the ship radar just would cause havoc. The upgraded OcuSync that the Mavic 2 uses and what the Air 2 uses has been rock solid for me. Good. And the Mini, uses Wi-Fi, and the original Air uses Wi-Fi.
Right.
And in some places you get fine, just great range. Other places it could be a lot less, and most importantly, your video feed can stutter a little bit. And if you're just flying for fun, it's not too big a deal. But if you're trying to make a smooth cinematic pass or something and it stutters and you can't tell if you've pushed the sticks too far one way or the other, that can ruin a shot, and then you have to do it again. So it's a big deal that in this small drone they've stuck OcuSync 2.
So Carr, are you serious? Are you going to upgrade to the Air 2?
Well, I haven't used mine professionally, really. I've used it one time for a job. And so I don't really need it. It is kind of just a toy, but it's something I would like to dive more into, especially because I'm enjoying video and I'm interested in more of that. And so it'd be fun to have it, but it'd also be fun to see what I could do with it professionally. And so, the Air has been great. I don't use it a lot because I haven't had a reason to, and all the national parks we go to, we can't take it. I mean, so many places that we travel to, I'm not allowed to bring it anyway. So it's just,
yeah. I don't see myself taking it on tour or anything. Well, we have a Toby, so there's reason to, but
there's no, it's redundant.
It's not really a passion of mine. I'd be buying it for my business. And, everybody wants those drone shots now. It's something I just can't ignore anymore.
Yeah. And I'll just point out for our Canadian friends, I know John, we have John in chat, at least one watching. In Canada, that 249 gram that the Mavic Mini hits makes it much more easy to fly. Canada's rules are pretty strict, and for drones over, the registration is pretty onerous and scares a lot of people away. So in the US, it's no big deal, but Canada a little bit more so. Real quick, the other things I put out, I've been pretty busy this week. I got that video out yesterday. Monday, I did a new style of video, totally not original, but I'm going to try these really short 1-minute tips called Monday Minutes. Cool. On a variety of topics. I'm going to start probably with Lightroom first. So that one went out, told people how to make a collection of their favorite black and white photos. Cool. Through Lightroom, using the Smart Collection tool, it will automatically find any photos that you've turned black and white and collect them together for you.
That's cool.
It is. It is pretty cool. And there are some other, the kind of search terms or the criteria that you can use to create a collection in Lightroom is really pretty impressive. So you're limited by your imagination. You can go in there and say, show me all of my panoramas, because you can ask it to show any image that is, has the long edge longer than 10,000 pixels. Although that doesn't work for you, does it, Steve? Because are yours, what's the resolution of your Hasselblad there?
50. It's just shy of 51 megapixels.
Yeah. So what's
100 megabyte files? Oh, what's the long edge on them?
Yeah. Yeah. So you could get close to that, but so that there's lots of different things you could do with that. So that's one thing. And then last night I sat down and did a webinar just with Penn members answering their Lightroom questions. So I kind of have done those different workshops. And then any questions that didn't get really answered as part of them, I sat and answered, and a lot of them is about moving folders and files and catalogs around. I mean, that's what trips so much of us up in working with Lightroom.
Right.
So a little bit later in the show, I'm going to show an alternative to Lightroom that looks pretty nice in some cases and doesn't have that idea of a catalog. So stay tuned for that.
Cool.
And the one other thing that I want to say that I had only very little to do, and that I sent it over out on email for pen members. Yesterday's Tuesday tip was a guest one from Brian Scanlon on sparking storytelling in your photography. And Brian, I love it. And it's funny because he sent the document and he sent a bunch of pictures, and I'm like, where do the pictures go? And that was after I told him I loved it, but I'd only skimmed it enough to know that I loved it. And he's like, they go where I've referenced them. And then you read a little more carefully. And this picture of, I was like, oh yeah, sorry, Brian. It's so good though. It's just awesome. And I want to take a moment because he sent along with that, he made in Spark, which is a free program from Adobe, a free web service, let's say. I think that's the best way to describe Spark. There's no program, you just log in. A kind of, as it says it, an interactive spin through Cuba. It is just, and his articles really is about doing something more with your pictures than just sharing a picture, but kind of putting them together with titles to tell a story. And then I've never really played with Spark other than to make quick like Instagram story stuff. And I'm just scrolling with my mouse wheel and it just moves through, and you've got quotes and mixed with Brian's pictures. And I just love it, Brian. It's absolutely fantastic. I didn't mention this last week, but it was on the list. Spark is free right now. It's always free for Adobe Creative Cloud members, but right now Adobe is giving access to everybody for 2 months to spark.adobe.com. So I'd really invite pen members, especially if you didn't read Brian's tip, please go read it. Do yourself a service. It's good. And then accept his challenge of doing something with your pictures and maybe considering Spark to put them together.
Hey, again, not to shoot myself in the foot and the marketing that you're providing me right now, but you still have follow Steve Scurich on Instagram.
Yeah, I'll take that up.
And
nobody wants to do that.
I just want to give this airtime to Brian, really.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Chris, who has been helping with the behind the scenes stuff of the show the last couple of weeks. So if the banners are good, that was her. But she's on a business/interview call right now, so she's a little tied up. So they're it's just awesome, just really cool. Yeah, this just captivated me and took a few moments to take in.
Wow.
So great work. This is linked in the show notes, folks. So even if you're not a pen member, I've given you access to Brian's Spark. Brian, I hope that's okay. I think it was. But you have to be a pen member to see his excellent storytelling. If he posts it anywhere else, you should follow him on Instagram. So I'm sure he'll share there when it is. It just keeps going. It's great. Thank you, Brian, for sharing that. And yeah. Okay.
Wow, that's incredible.
Very nicely done. I think we're ready to move into the part of the show. I think that was everything, where we look at your photos in Lightroom. So I just unshared the screen and right back at it. Here we go. Okay. First up, we got Becky Miller's July Mongolia Milky Way shot. Steve, I'm going to ask you to go first since you were on this trip with her.
I was. So this is interesting because Becky was one of the few people out of the whole group of us who got up in the middle of the night, went out with a tripod and shot this. In fact, most of us didn't even, including myself, did not even have our tripods with us. And so huge kudos to Becky on even getting the shot. It's absolutely beautiful. I like what she's done here with the crop and the storytelling, Brian. You know, showing just that little bit. We talk about rule of thirds a lot and stuff, but there's a lot of power in negative space or putting the landscape way down in the bottom of the picture the way she did here. It minimizes it and it makes you just feel small. And I love that when it comes to Milky Way or any star shots. So I like what she's done here. It's a little bit, I think the tint is a little bit on the green side and the sky is a little blue for my taste. Again, I say this on every broadcast, but I'm looking at kind of a recording, so sometimes some things will move around and it's kind of pixelated. So I'm not seeing a real sharp version of this. But what do you guys think? Does it look a little blue and green to you?
I think there was a little bit of that. Not too bad though. So I warmed it a tiny bit and I moved the tint just so +2 on both of those. And I think you could argue that it's back in the realm of something normal. This is, that's one of those things where you see people, you could go this way, and I feel like you get a lot more of the warmth of the Milky Way. And then there are people that go
down. If you go warm on a star shot, it's awesome for getting detail in a Milky Way, but then you really need to bring those blacks down.
Yeah, it's true. I think man, I like this photo a lot. I like that we're seeing some foreground, but just a hint of it.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's the right amount of foreground because there's nothing really happening in the foreground other than just, it looks like some bushes or something. But I mean, I don't know what I would change. If I had shot this, number one, I'd be really proud of myself because that's an awesome shot. I would probably be struggling a little bit with the clouds on the bottom right, just wondering if I could get rid of them. But at the same time, they don't really bother me too much as a viewer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's one of those things I would try to figure out if I could get rid of them, but then I don't know that I would need to. So
yeah, a little bit of clouds doesn't bother me too much in star photos because for me, it sets up a little bit more of a kind of a depth to this image.
Yeah.
Those are clearly in the foreground and the stars are clearly behind. So I feel like I can kind of move into this image a little bit more.
Yeah, and I only say that as just like a thought because it doesn't really bother me. If I saw this hanging, a nice big print of this hanging on the wall, I would be like, look at that shot. That's awesome. That's the takeaway for me. So
yeah.
Go ahead, Steve. One of the things that, now that I'm kind of shifting my brain into photo critique mode, I do have different modes and I have to think about these things. The more I look at the foreground, the more I almost want it just more silhouetted. So you don't the splotchiness of the variations in the ground and stuff like that. Because as I'm noticing that, it's kind of taking my attention away from the Milky Way. So I like having the ground there as an anchor point, but I don't necessarily need to see the detail of what's there. It can be kind of shrouded in shadows and darkness and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be totally blacked out, but
I agree with you. Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Good. And then, I'd probably just darken the blacks even a little more. I just want to get away from kind of the color in the sky. I don't want it to be so dark. You need a little bit of blue in there because it gives you a little bit of depth. It shows the variations as it comes down to the land. Yeah. But and then the warmth really helps with the Milky Way. But star photos are very tricky to edit. But when you get it right, they're super impactful.
Yeah. And I've seen folks go either way. I've seen pictures posted that are quite a blue dark sky. I used to do that fairly often, and I still tend towards the blue. And those get really good feedback. And then I see ones that are much, much warmer with some fun colors, and those do well too. So I think you can really go either way.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can kind of just interpret it however you want to. But I'm with you, Steve. Like a lot of times if I am editing a star shot of mine, I will bring the blacks down and try to, the spaces between the stars, like really lose any light there and just like really accentuate those stars. But obviously there's a little bit of haze and the Milky Way is a hazy looking thing anyway. So preserving that, it's a delicate balance. I think it's one of those things you could probably overthink it if you're not careful. But all in all, I think this shot's pretty cool. And I agree with what you were suggesting there, Steve. Like just bringing the foreground down, not all the way, but like you did there, Toby. I think just hinting at the detail without your eye getting totally drawn to it is powerful.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, can you change the background from that light gray to black? There we go. I like seeing how that kind of pops off of the pure black. That
Yeah.
looks good.
Yeah.
Adam asked camera and lens. This is the Nikon D850 with the 18 to 35, 30 seconds at f4, which I'll just point out, 30 seconds at 18 millimeters. If we zoom in, we're probably going to see star movement. We do. So if Becky printed this larger, those stars would not be pinpoints of light. But at normal viewing and social media sharing, looks totally fine. So don't feel like you always have to hit the 500 rule or the other rule. I like the darkening suggestion, Steve, because one thing that was bothering me is there's two kind of prominent clumps of grass or bushes that were just cut off, and now those are just kind of faded into darkness, what I like. And the one other thing I did while you guys were talking, I actually have a brush that's called Milky Way, and it just brings highlights and whites up, and it just makes, I just brush it over the milky parts of the Milky Way. And then I got to do new. And then I have a brush for Gap Milky Way. This just brings down exposure and shadows, and I just brush a little bit. It's very subtle, but it just helps to kind of create that definition between the sky and the other. You have to be careful not to overdo it. That might have been a little too much.
Yeah, because this is dead center, you may even want to, it's very easy, go into the, oh gosh, what's the term I'm even looking for here?
Graduated filter?
No. Oh my gosh. You never go white with it. You always go black. All the way at the bottom. Vignette.
Oh, vignette.
Yeah.
Go to a little bit of a vignette, darken the edges and bring the viewer right into the center. So,
yeah. Cool. Nice shot, Becky. Thanks for sharing. And we're going to move on. Heather's got a Southwest sunset. I think this was from one of our Southwest trips down on the water's edge. And she's already got it cropped in this is 16 by 9-ish, isn't it? Oh, no, it's wider than that. It's probably a 2 by 1. I think that's what it was. Somewhere in that general. Let me undo and come back to where she was. Yeah. And I like, we had people down in front swimming, and you got rid of those people. I like that.
Yeah. Love what she did with this.
Cotton candy skies, lovely image up top. Would you come in a little bit more?
I probably would, yeah.
Somewhere in that general vicinity, maybe. And then I wonder if I threw, she does already. She's got, Heather, I think you've been paying attention to my editing videos at least.
Looks like
you've got a graduated filter that dropped the texture and sharpness down of that water to smooth it out a little bit. And that's all you did to that. Yep, I think that looks good. I almost wonder what about doing that in the sky as well? Softening, exact same graduated filter and just softening the sky a little bit. Steve, I know you usually like that. Do you think it's appropriate in this image?
Yeah, I do. And I've talked about this before. I won't go extreme on it, but I'll slightly soften a sky or any elements around a rocky area. Just, it makes the rocks kind of pop more, or the mountains pop more without messing with sharpening and detail and stuff like that and making it noisy or pixelated. And just by, slightly softening what's around there just makes them kind of stand out a little bit more. And then I would maybe consider painting on a little bit of contrast to those rocks, or maybe a tiny bit of dehaze, just to make them stand out even a little bit more. Because they looked a little hazy, a little soft in the whole scene, but I love the whole scene. I just want the mountains to really kind of stand out as rigid and, hard rock, and kind of see the detail of it.
Yeah. I can't tell. Well, what was the shutter speed on this? Just curious.
6 seconds.
Okay. Yes. And that's water in the foreground. I mean, again, I'm looking at a very small version of it. Okay. Yeah. So 6 seconds, that blurs the water nicely. There's kind of a line going across the water, kind of midway through.
Yeah.
And I can't tell if that's, like, from what I'm looking at. I mean, it sticks out to me, but I don't know that it needs to be gotten rid of or just minimized, or I don't know. I would probably play with that and just see what it looks like without the line, or just painting over it and decreasing the opacity of the of a healing brush or a clone brush, and just like reducing the effect of it. And again, I mean, I always have a caveat to my suggestions because a lot of times they're just thoughts. It's just like, what would it look like, you know? And then, yeah, I don't know.
I think they're good suggestions. I like it a little cleaner.
Yeah.
Because it's something that your eye kind of it's different and your eye grabs onto it, and it's not interesting different. It's just different and pulls you away from the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a little stronger without it.
Yeah. Nice.
But, I mean, that's a great photo.
Yeah, it is very nice. All right. We're moving on to another panorama. Kevin's got this one that he shot on our New England trip very recently. Well, actually, wasn't that recent ago now, was it?
It's back when we could shake people's hands and eat at restaurants and
that's weird to think about.
Live.
Live. I miss days.
Actually have a life.
Yeah. All right. So Kevin actually emailed me. He's like, did you guys review this at some point or not? Because he sent it a while ago and it hadn't got. And I feel like I think I edited it in prep for one of my other videos, but it didn't make the cut as far as me actually sharing that because I ran out of time. Let's see. This is a cool, very wide shot.
Is this a pano?
I think he did. It says pano down here. I believe it is a pano. And if we get our dimensions up, well, it's been cropped down, but it's almost a 2:1, or actually a little bit more than a 2:1. I don't know what its original resolution was. Let me ask you, Steve, what do you think about putting this spot here where we got just a little bit of the cliff face to set the scene for everybody? This is a beautiful overlook called Cathedral Ledge in New Hampshire, and looks out over this valley, and right below you drops this cliff ledge, and it extends to the left a little bit. So Kevin nabbed just a little bit of that ledge and then has this whole valley kind of opening up in front. What do you think, Steve?
So I think I was standing right next to Kevin when he took this shot, actually. And first of all, Kevin, thanks again for all the maple syrup that you sent my wife and I, because we are still having a field day with that stuff. We put it on pancakes and waffles, and I've mixed it into cocktails, and it's amazing. So with that out of the way, he was very, very generous. He and his wife sent me a beautiful care package of maple syrup after this trip. I would definitely take that rock.
Let me just tell people why, though, because he saw how much syrup you drowned your waffles in that first breakfast morning where I was sitting next to you. I could hear your waffles gurgling for help. That's why. He's like, this man doesn't have enough syrup at home. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, it was one of those things where the syrup just got a heavy pour on the first day, and then it just kind of stuck with me as a nickname through the rest of the
no pun intended. So
I enjoyed it. I got a huge box full of super luxurious maple syrup out of it. Anyway, so I would definitely keep the rock out of this photograph. One of the things with panos is you come home and you have all this, you stitch it together and you have all this space to work with. And that's a really good thing. That's why you shoot panos. But it's also very easy to overdo what you're showing the viewer in panorama. So in this case, that rock is awesome if you had more of it there to really give context on where you're standing. You're taking it from so high up, and you just see a little sliver of that off to the left side. It just, you can't put those things together unless you were actually there. So cropping that out, and it looks a little crooked leaning down to the right. So I would kind of straighten it out. It may not be. He may have done, like an auto straighten or something, but it just looked a little crooked to me, and I'm super sensitive to that stuff being an architectural photographer. That looks better.
Yeah.
So that scene right there is just stunning. And Kevin did a great job with his edits. I think it's beautiful. There is a white spot to the left in the clouds that I would probably eliminate, that little hole, which is just, it seems silly, but once you see it, you can't stop looking away from it. And that's not what the story is. The story is the whole traveling from the bottom of the photograph to the top. And I think that looks great right there.
Mm-hmm. I'm just making some very minor, I think you did a nice job post-processing as well. I'm just making just a few tweaks in the color panel. And I think that looks pretty good. Carr, you want to add anything?
Yeah, the first thing my eyes saw was that rock, and I'm sure it was a beautiful rock. I mean, I'm sure like if you could see more of it, there was probably something really to see. But when there's only that much of it, and then you've got the rest of this whole scene. Unfortunately, I just feel like it's a distraction from the scene. And there's a lot to see here. I mean, there's this whole valley and all these colors and the mountains and the sky and fog. And I mean, which I love that. I actually like photos. Sometimes I love simple photos, but I also love photos where there's a lot to look at, because it's just, in a scene like this, how could there not be a lot to look at? But when you throw that rock in, it just became a thing that there wasn't enough of it to tell the story. So in my opinion. Nice. But otherwise, I think it was exposed really well and processed beautifully. So
he must have had a good instructor standing next to him helping out.
Probably what it was.
His hands were stuck together from all the syrup in the morning.
Kevin was probably just on the money, and I was busy dropping my ND filters off of the ledge.
I think we told that. Did we
tell we told that story a few weeks back.
Okay. That's a good story. I told that to somebody, a group of people recently without you around. So I was able to really make you look like the fool you are.
It was a foolish moment.
No, it happens to all of us. All right, moving on. We've got Douglas Punzel's photo. Doug, he was on the Lightroom Q&A last night. I love when we get new names on here. I mean, I love seeing everybody, but I love that we get some new folks submitting images as well. Really strong image. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
This is awesome.
I'm thinking, all right, so he sent along DNG, so we're seeing his crops already. I'm thinking of cropping it in just a tiny bit more, because we have just a hint of this shinier, less motion water there. I might just come up a bit. What do we think?
Yeah,
I think that's a good call.
Yeah.
My first inclination would be to come in from the left, but I don't know. I mean, I know we're always going for that rule of thirds thing, but sometimes I'm willing to challenge it. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. So
I'd kind of split the middle. I'd come in from the left only so much as to crop out that brighter yellow area that was partially included.
Yes.
So Toby, just maybe a little. Yeah, you got that right there. You clip that out or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do like this. However, now the structure at the end of the pier is just off center. So you either kind of want to move it into a third or you want to center it up.
So either come back and deal with this
you can take
floating
that there and keep it,
or come in far enough.
The way the clouds sort of hit that upper left corner too.
Yeah, that's the reason why I didn't want to come too far, because I love the clouds. So yeah, I'm kind of with you there. If you deal with that bright yellow area there in the middle.
And it looks totally cool as a super horizontal.
Yeah, it's cool.
So I would just take that brighter area out, because
I'm being lazy. This would be good for Photoshop. Let's see what Lightroom does in there, and it's a little messy, but it serves the purpose for right now.
Yeah, you get the idea.
This shot reminds me a lot of the photo that I made called Reconciliation.
I was thinking that. Yeah.
To my father for Christmas a couple years ago. Huge metal print. It's awesome. If you go to my professional Facebook site, Steve Scurich Photography, you can actually see it as the cover photo.
Hold on, man. I already left the banner up with your name on it for like 20 minutes. You don't get to put in any more plugs.
But we also did a tutorial. I think I did a tutorial on pen about it. I don't know if it was a Tuesday tip or video or what, but just a fun thing to do. It's not going to be to everybody's taste, but this is my personal page.
Yeah. I'm getting there.
There should be a link on there to Steve Scurich Photography.
Oh my God. What's going on here?
Look at those pork chops, man. There you go. So, yeah, and this was just a lot of fun more than anything. And there was a whole story of reconciliation that went with it. That's why it was a gift. But just something to try out. I'm not saying that makes it a stronger photo or anything. It's just something kind of fun to play around with.
Yeah.
The one out. Well, so I threw same thing I did to Heather's. I threw a graduated filter over the bottom, just dropped texture and clarity a little bit to soften and kind of further enhance that motion in the water. I like that. And then we've got a boat or an offshore oil platform here. I might just kind of trim that out, clean it up a little bit. But really, really nice. I love how these clouds are all kind of just bringing us to this structure.
Yep,
it's gorgeous.
Very nice. All right, we've got Travis with another love. We have a series today of gorgeous soft clouds that I just want to snuggle.
Yeah. Wow.
Like a teddy bear.
Snuggly clouds.
Yep. Lovely.
So yeah, this is cool.
That, I would consider cropping this more as like an 8:10 ratio. And because there's a lot of stuff going on the left-hand side that just doesn't really need to be part of the story. That's good. You put the structure in the upper third. Obviously, the water, the fall is the leading line coming in. I'd maybe come up from the bottom even just slightly. And it looks good. And then what I would do is I would actually go in with a darkening brush, and I would really darken that lower right corner down there, because you don't want people's attention being pulled away from the brighter areas, which is in the sky and the water, and then obviously the structure. And you don't want people to be pulled down in there. You want them to not miss the beautiful clouds in the sky in the upper left. And I feel like with that being so bright down there, it kind of competes with that.
I would agree with that. How much room? I know I know it's an 8:10, but on the right. Okay, yeah. I was wondering. I know there's a tree that kind of is just cut off on the far right. Yeah, I just thought if you could get maybe a little more of the big tree that is all there.
You don't want to get too tight on that tree.
Yeah, I just thought it was nice to have a little more space. It's tricky with cropping, because if you stick to one of the standard aspect ratios, sometimes it cuts off too much over here to save this over here. And so I've been doing these freeform crops lately just to get exactly what I want to see in the shot and nothing else. And so I know that we've talked about that before. That can make for a trickier printing process, but I mean, really make sure that the elements of the photo that you really want in it are there and in the right spots, and then everything else, you can kind of trim out. And that, to me, that looks really nice.
Toby, again on that freeform crop, if you take it from the top and come down below that tree branch,
yeah,
I see how that looks. Oh yeah,
that's nice. That's nice. Now that you could argue that tree branch is serving somewhat as a framing device, but is it just a little?
Yeah,
I'm
not sure about that. I would kind of have to stew on it for a while. I do like it kind of hanging over. It does frame it nicely, but it also becomes another centerpiece that kind of takes away from the structure.
Yeah,
looks good.
Yeah, chat room. Let us know what you think. I'd love to hear your opinions. And if you're watching, I came up from the bottom a little bit more. I kind of got past that green clump, but then I feel like we're just too tight on.
Yeah.
Water here, and that needs some of its room.
I'll tell you, if this was my photo and I was working on it, I mean that branch we're talking about at the top, like whether to keep it or not, I probably would go into Photoshop and
get rid of it,
copy it, and then bring it down and make it like still use it as a framing device, but just lower, like bring it down. Obviously you don't need to do that right now, but just those are the kind of things I tend to think on. Is like I want to keep it, I just want it to be lower. So and I know there are varying opinions on how much you do that. Like how much do we really want to change what was actually happening? But to me, I'm kind of like, I just want to make it look awesome. So
chat room, a lot of people commenting in the chat room say lose the branch.
Okay.
That's part of the reason why I wanted to take a look and see what it looked like. It definitely helps you focus more on the structure and the falls and the sky. And Just Kyle had a great comment earlier. He said this could be a really cool, I'm kind of losing it here. This would be a great location with some intense storm clouds, perfect for a black and white image. And I really couldn't agree more. it's hard to even think about this as a black and white because the color is so beautiful and it's so subtle. But as a black and white with some stormy sky, earlier I talked about sky replacement, AI software and stuff, and Luminar would be cool. You could put some stormy skies up there and it changes the story completely. It makes it eerie. And I think it works either way.
Yeah. There's my super fast, beautiful storm clouds. Good suggestions. I just made a virtual copy, so there's a color back there.
Great. Nice. Who submitted that one? That was a new submission?
This is Travis Saunders, and I believe he submitted before, but I've seen his name occasionally, but not often.
Well, Travis, if you're watching this, keep submitting, man. I want to see.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah. All right, last one. We've got Chris Bartel. Is this a calla lily? Is that what they are? We know.
I would ask you, Toby.
Let me Google that.
I am drinking the gin daisy, so I should know.
You're the one drinking the gin daisy.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a flower.
Flower. Nice. Thanks for checking on Google for that.
Yeah, I just confirmed it.
We're gonna get lit up in the chat room. Everybody probably knows what this is.
I know.
Andrew says it looks like it. Okay. This is striking. I love this. And you guys, I don't know if it's making it over the YouTube's compression algorithms, but there is just a hint of stuff going on in the background. So for a moment, I'm going to bring up exposure and show you that there is stuff.
Okay. All right.
And it looks like we're working with a DNG here, but it doesn't look like it came over with any edits. So I'm going to bring exposure down a little bit more, but maybe not too much that I don't want the flower to get dark. And shadows, I'm going to bring down a little bit more. I just really want to make sure that background on all monitors and all brightness levels is just dark, right? We don't want to see any kind of hints of green back there.
Yeah, exactly. If it's already kind of like you don't know that it's there, and then you have to look, you might as well just not have it at all.
So I liked the way Chris had edited the leaves of the calla lily down at the bottom, showing those a little bit more. I would probably go in with a brush and I would just really darken the background to get rid of what's going on back there.
Yeah.
Because it brings a little bit more three-dimensionality to it and depth by showing the leaves back there. They're obviously the plane of field is kind of broken, and so they're slightly out of focus. And I think she shot this really well and processed it beautifully. Maybe when you bring the exposure down and stuff, you don't want to lose any of the detail that's in the brighter area. So I'd definitely bring the highlights down and then the whites up, but then back them off a bit.
And then, is there like a little just piece of something off the top left of the flower? Like
there is. There's just a little bit of the flower. It's this little green curly Q.
Oh, okay. I mean, if that's what is typically on a flower like that, then I guess you keep it. It sticks out to me because I don't know this flower. I'm not.
It's definitely part of it.
I see. Okay, yeah, then that makes sense. Okay, the way, again, it's a lot of times it's the way we're seeing it on our screen. So seeing it zoomed in, it makes more sense keeping it. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, filling the frame with that thing is pretty cool looking, Toby.
Yeah. It's, I mean, this is, I think we've all gone through phases in our life where we've shot flowers. They can be just so dang pretty. And it's almost like, photographing somebody else's statue or artwork. It feels like it's cheating because it's this cool photogenic thing. But then there are ways to capture them that Chris, you did, and through editing, where you've just got this flower that just stands out. All right, did I lose everybody?
No,
it was just dead quiet.
You were like E.F. Hutton, man. We were just listening.
Okay, so you're saying you could come in. You would also think that a crop of just kind of somewhere around here could be a thing too. Oh, look at that! I'm always glancing up at the navigator window.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can go with this. The great thing is, Chris. So with flowers, you typically don't want to shoot them just head on. A lot of people do that. They just shoot right down into the top of a flower. And that's a pretty shot, but a lot of times it kind of flattens it. It doesn't look too three-dimensional. You don't see what's underneath and stuff. And so the angle that she shot from is just outstanding. And I like the processing that she did. It just feels like you could reach out and touch this thing.
Yeah. And the light is so spot on. I mean, it's, which sometimes that's just, sometimes it's a happy accident. We're shooting, it's outside, the sun's doing what it's doing, but just the way the rim of that, the bottom of the flower, it's just a gorgeous light, and it falls off. I like the way, because that's a big thing, is light fall off, especially in these kinds of shots where you've got this bright area and then it falls off into darkness. I like the leaf because it is in shadow, but it's there. The whole thing has this artistic shape, which that's one of the beautiful things about nature, is that it's just, that's what it is. But that doesn't mean every time you take a photo of something in nature, it's going to look artistic. So you have to find the angle and the view and the right flower. There might've been a flower next to this that wasn't as pretty. And so it's finding the right one, finding the right angle, the right light, and getting this artistic, expression to it. And I think it's very nice.
It's another one that might go black and white. I saw Kate Montague's post in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways you could go with this.
Good. I kind of like, if you're going to go black and white, it's going to give it a much more artsy sort of story to tell. I would crop it kind of more horizontal, and even cut off the edges of the petals a little bit, possibly. And then really bring in some contrast and just kind of accentuate it. Because what happens is you lose the yellow that was right in the center of that flower. And so now you have black and white to tell the story. So you have to kind of create that depth right there. So I think contrast and working with the highlights and stuff would really kind of help that out.
Yeah.
Well, it's the sign of a good photo is when you can work with it a number of ways and they all look cool. Like it's not like you're trying to fix something that's not great and like, well, here, what can I salvage out of this? It's already cool. And it's so simple. I was talking earlier about, I love complex photos when there's so much to look at, but I love the simple photos where it's pristine. There's not a lot of information. It's just the right information.
Yeah. And Chris says she shot that just today. Cool.
Cool.
All right. Chris, thank you. And thank you to everybody who submitted images. Appreciate it. And hope you found something useful in sharing this. If you are watching this and you're not a Penn member, this is just one of many benefits. We are running a special for new members, photorec.tv/Penn. We'll give you all the information you need. And I'm really proud of what we offer, and consider joining. And again, thank you to those who submitted. All right, we're moving on to some news. A little quiet this week. We already talked about the drone that's out and going well. Last week, we talked about the EOS R5. No new information on that. And what else was I going to talk about? Oh, I know what it was. Last week, I shared a Lego set that I have got to get. It is a little minifigure drone dude. And then my virtual friend, is that wrong? Alan, I only know him through Twitter, made a little diorama where the drone is stuck in the tree, and I've got to get that. But Steve, I actually meant to share this on the show last week, not to leave you out, but I'll share my screen again. Check out this Lego set. I actually think it's a standard set, but what this ad is for is lights that you can add.
Okay.
Nice.
So I have a little story about this. I saw this in the show notes before we started. I kind of got a good laugh out of it. First of all, this is absolutely a great Lego set for me. And Toby, explain why that is.
Well, you just, you have a little soft spot for the Defender. Just a little.
So I'm a Jeep guy. I've had like 5 Jeeps, and the reality is I just can't afford a Defender. But I would gladly sell my Jeep, buy a Defender. And I'm so bummed because years ago I was going to buy one and they were like $20,000 or something. But I couldn't afford it then. And now they're just worth $80,000. And they just redesigned it. So the interesting thing about this particular photo is this shows what a nerd I am about the Defender. I follow the rumor sites and stuff, and they're bringing it back to America. This 2021 year is, I think it's a 2021 model, is, or it's coming back this spring. Like orders are already placed. And this was leaked before they ever announced the new Defender. So people were kind of going in.
Lego set was.
Analyzing the Lego set. Like, okay, trying to figure out what the new one's going to look like. And I remember seeing it and just being like, oh, that's a Lego set I totally want. And
That's pretty cool.
It is. It is pretty cool. I love the lights too. So a couple quick things. One, think about the poor the poor people in charge of keeping things secret. And they're like, God, now we got to make sure we're not letting the Lego people release sets.
You also have to realize a lot of companies out there, they almost get behind and start playing the game too.
Mm-hmm.
Leak little things here and there just to get the public interest going.
Yeah.
I remember that with one of the 2 last Avenger movies. People were analyzing the Lego sets to figure out, what characters were going to do what in the movie. Right. And I was like, oh man. Yeah. I feel nerdy when we talk about rumors of upcoming gear, but this is a whole nother level. I like it. I mean, I remember reading about it, so I was right there, but I'm not running a show about it. So I'm not that nerdy. Let me take another sip of my Gin Daisy.
So when we're on tour and we get done with the shoot or something, Toby and I are back at our hotel room and we're just kicking back, watching YouTube videos, or he's editing or something, and he'll look over and just be like, what are you watching? I'm usually watching car videos. He's like, we're on this photo tour. What are you doing watching these car videos?
All right, man.
Cars are
but the thing that kind of is bewildering to me, Steve, is that like you're a photographer and you can't afford an $80,000 car. I mean, like,
yeah, figure, right?
I mean, raking it in is like what we do.
I'm a photographer who shoots a Hasselblad medium format, so that means that I should, live in a mansion and afford any car I want, right?
But you bought a Hasselblad, so
that's exactly why I don't have a Defender, because I bought a Hasselblad.
They break down a lot, so.
Wait, the Hasselblad or the Defender?
Oh, that's a good question.
Hasselblad's been good. It has. I was fully expecting some breakdown, but knock on wood, hasn't happened yet.
Good.
All right, moving on. Canon has released a beta of this app that allows you to use your camera as a webcam. This is great because many of us are working from home these days. Some of us are already equipped for broadcasting from home. We're the lucky ones, because if you suddenly found yourself at home and realize that you need a better quality webcam, they're basically sold out everywhere. You go and try to find them online. I heard stories of a security company with USB cameras updating the firmware, letting people use those as home webcams. And then we've got this EOS webcam utility from Canon. So down here is the list of cameras it's used with, everything from the 1DX Mark III, the 90D. At first I was like, oh, I don't have a camera that's compatible with this right now, because my kid has Henry's got the Rebel T6i. But then I remembered I do have the 90D in for review, but then I saw this is Windows only. So,
oh boy.
Wah, wah. But it's pretty cool because so of course, if you have, they show you, say, well, what option? If you have a camera that has HDMI out, then there are some options for setting that up. But most of our cameras don't have HDMI out, or I should say some of them. And so just using the standard USB connection and this software will allow you to use it as a webcam. And it's going to give you so much better quality.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So that's cool.
All the Mac haters are loving that.
Yes.
One more thing to throw in our faces.
That's great.
No, I could run Parallels on my computer, but why in the world would I want to back up a perfectly good Mac with that?
Yeah. And then David Carr, Nikon has now officially discontinued the 200mm f2. This is from over on Nikon Rumors. Sad news. I don't know. Did you ever shoot with this lens?
No, I didn't. I mean, like Steve, I don't have the income for that. It's a super expensive lens, and no, I'm kidding, Steve. I just, we're talking about the Defender and the.
You're a Grammy award-winning musician, man, aren't you?
He was. No, I've heard nothing but fantastic things about that lens. It's awesome. It's huge and heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I've noticed is, so you'll go look at sample images of from a lens like that. And I'm a nerdy gear guy myself, but I'll go look at sample images of things that were shot, by pros on that lens. And I'm like, okay, that's a cool shot. Yeah. But they could have shot that with a 70 to 200 and I probably would have been like pretty blown away. They could have shot it with an 85 millimeter 1.8 and I would have been blown away. I mean, there's a certain point where I'm like, I'm not seeing the difference in the final result that it's touted to offer. And that's my cynical side. Cause look, I love cool gear and quirky, I like stuff that's out there and that's, that people sort of are lusting after, in the gear world. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's a big, heavy, expensive lens to do one thing well. Yeah. And maybe that's cynical, but
I totally hear you, and I think you're right. The fact that it's moved over to the old version, the rumors are likely a new version is coming. But here's my question: are we going to get a version in the F mount, or are we going to get a version in the Z mount? Because isn't Nikon the guys who said not too long ago that we're pretty much done with our DSLR lenses?
Well, exactly. That's the conundrum Nikon shooters are finding themselves in, is that they're coming out with these. They just came out with a $9,000. What's the focal range on that? But it's basically, it's a zoom that goes to 300, 2.8. But it's $9,000. That's an F mount lens. It's geared towards sports shooters, and I get that, but I'm just like, I want more Z glass. I want more of that, and I think more and more that's where we're headed. So to invest that kind of money in F mount glass, for me personally, I'm not even thinking about those types of lenses,
Yeah.
So just to clarify, I know that Canon came out with a statement that they are no longer developing EF mount lenses for their DSLRs unless the public demands it, basically.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm thinking of then. It was Canon that said that, it wasn't Nikon. Okay.
Yeah, they'll continue supporting them. They're just not going to invest money in developing new products for their DSLRs. Nikon, I don't think has ever made a statement like that. They may end up coming out with a 200 f2 that has two different mounting systems.
Yeah, maybe they will. I mean, I know that Canon has for the mirrorless, they have an 80 to 200 f2. I mean, it's some crazy focal range. It's a $4,000 lens or something, or 3,000. But it gives you the zoom capability. It gives you that two, the aperture of 2, f2, but it's giving you a zoom. That's not even, you can't even zoom with that. So it's that one trick pony kind of thing. And you hear me talk about my 300 millimeter all the time. Well, I didn't pay a fortune for it. And
yeah, this lens comes as roughly $6,000, 5,600.
Yeah. I mean, it's so weird. I mean, I get it. If you're making the kind of money and doing a specific thing and you can justify that and that's what you need. But for the average person looking at gear,
really tight, customer base right there that you're marketing that thing to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's a comment down here. I should have read this, then I would have seemed more knowledgeable. So last year there was a Nikon promo video mentioning a non-existent updated version of this lens, basically. So there's still hope for an F mount. And Nikon rumors person says there's nothing on the roadmap for a Z mount of this lens, but wouldn't that be sweet? So. And let's stick with the Z mount series for just a minute longer. Steve Perry's got a video out. He is a wildlife photographer and he's got specific tips. I know we have some Z6 and Z7 users in our group. Tips for performance capturing action and the AF setting. So this is linked in the show notes. I haven't actually watched it, but I saw people speak very highly of it. So if you've got a Z6, Z7, or Z50 and you want to get a little bit better performance out of your camera as far as action and autofocus goes, go watch Steve Perry's video. And then let's skip over photos of space. Oh, we've had a segment in the past. I'll just mention a lot of angst about Elon Musk putting up his Starlink satellites because they were super duper super shiny, and people were seeing them in their star pictures. And if you go to this link, you can see some videos of where as they're just trailing across the sky and just kind of ruining good star photos. All the rest of them that they're going to put up, starting with Launch 9, will have a non-reflective coating and also sunshades. I don't know how any of that's going to work, but I do appreciate them putting that information doing
a couple cans of matte black industrial spray paint in my garage. I'd be happy to go up there.
Yeah, just plastic dip those things, man. They'll be good to go.
Use it on that Arc'teryx hat you got that's all like moldy looking.
That's a great idea, actually. It needs that. The one that I lost for like 6 months, and I was devastated, and I finally found it under my bed.
That's hilarious.
My favorite hat of all time. It looks like a total disaster, but it's so comfy.
That's funny.
What's going on under your bed that it looks like?
So
he's going to answer. Okay.
Beds that is adjustable. It's like a hospital bed, right? You can bring the feet and the head up and stuff. So at some point, I must have had the head up, and then it fell behind. I don't know. I fell asleep with it on or something like that, and then it was just lost forever because there's like nothing under our bed. But I happened to find this one hat. So yeah.
Adam in chat, we're moving on from your hat discussion. He got a 6D set up using the Canon webcam utility, and it's fantastic. So that's really cool.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. That's great. He couldn't get the EOS R to connect, though. A couple more quick links before we get to our favorite travel destinations and memories. Adobe does good. They're going to share out over $1 million worth of grants this year to creatives. That includes photographers, a variety of projects. So you can follow this link, read more about it, and apply for a grant if there's a specific project you're working on, or if it's something that Adobe needs done. So that's good because so many creatives are freelancers. And I know I've been following closely kind of like most websites. Unemployment is very difficult for freelancers to get because, you're not out of a job necessarily. Just the way you work changes very differently. And well, it's basically you are out of a job, but it's not the same as being laid off or fired or furloughed.
Right.
So the rigmarole and the hoops you got to jump through to get any kind of help and support during this time is it's just crazy. And so I've been following all of that, and it's just anywhere else that any of these big companies that do have a little extra cash or a lot of extra cash can help the individuals, I think is a fantastic thing.
Awesome. That's great. Good for you, Adobe.
Now, and very quick, last thing, I just want to put a plug out there or just a mention of this. Where am I going here with it? I just broke a link. It's Exposure 5. I hadn't heard of it before. I guess that link that I just used was bad. It's on DP Review's website. It is an alternative to Lightroom, and it looks very good, and it's about $100.
Okay.
So if you are out there and you're unhappy with Lightroom, that might be something to consider. I'll make sure the link in the show notes is working later.
That is becoming quite the crowded space now.
Alternatives to Lightroom?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to, there's a couple of companies I think where the cream is rising to the top a bit. But two things come to mind. I'd really like a true alternative to Lightroom, and really we may not know that without some time and just seeing, a bunch of people gravitate to one other software source. The other thing is this should continue to be a wake-up call to Adobe. I know they're doing some things with the grants and stuff like that, but I mean, when you're in number one, people are breathing down your neck. But for a few years now, there's been some real up-and-comers that are developing some great products.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It really should just be a fire under Adobe to say, you got to start coming out with some stuff that people really want. I know they've been making some incremental improvements and stuff like that, but people are still complaining about the speed. I mean, we were complaining about the speed of Lightroom years ago, literally years ago. And then the subscription base, there's still a lot of people out there that don't want to just subscribe and pay every month.
Yeah. But also some of these alternatives are moving to the subscription base too. So it's tricky.
Yeah.
And I think, we have talked about this before. I think sadly the answer to Lightroom speed is for them to leave Classic behind at some point in the future. I don't think that the way it's built can support these higher megapixel cameras and larger catalogs as we move forward, or even the idea of the catalog as it is.
I think you're probably right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a good business strategy. You're just going to have to figure out a way to integrate all the functionality that you get with Classic into the CC version, so that people are able to do what they're used to doing. Because a lot of people are becoming very, very heavy Lightroom users.
Yeah, and it starts to feel clunky after a while when you're trying to move massive amounts of files, and then the more you edit a photo in Lightroom, the more you start doing stuff to it, the slower it gets. And but I think the hardest thing for anybody that's breaking away from the Adobe world is getting away from Photoshop, because if you really start to use Photoshop and the heavy lifting that you can do in that, moving, like, that's the biggest deterrent for me. I looked at some of the others and they look beautiful. I mean, there's probably some really wonderful aspects of some of these other platforms and softwares, but like, I want to be able to do the things I do in Photoshop, and I want to do them that way. And that keeps me kind of tethered to Lightroom, no pun intended, because nothing tethers to Lightroom.
Yeah. Nice. I like it.
I would never give up my Photoshop anytime soon.
Yeah.
And, Brian Scanlon just had a comment. He says, my Lightroom crawls with the large catalog, and Toby's trick is key, which I totally agree with. A catalog for every year. I think it's great. The problem I have is, why do we have to do that? You look at one, and they just automatically, you set up a catalog, it self-populates 4 different folders. And then anytime you're working on an image, it's just simply pulling from that catalog source and working through that, not hunting through your whole library of images. So there's ways to get around that. Toby's trick or suggestion of one every year is great. But I like just having everything in one place. Obviously, have it backed up, but it's nice to be able to, if I want to go back and find photos from 2015 or 13 or something, I don't have to just close a catalog and reopen a new one.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing that helped me was, because I had everything on a 5 terabyte rugged drive, a LaCie rugged drive. And, it's a great drive, but it's a spinning drive. And so I decided last year to move all of 2018 and 2019 photos onto one of the SanDisk, SSD 2 terabyte drives. And that is so portable. It's SSD. And that has really helped just the flow of things, the speed of things. And, I've only got 2 years of photos on there, but it's working for me right now. And then I've got all that old stuff on the other drive, and I can always just plug it in when I need it. If I had to access a photo the other day from 5 years ago, just plug it in and get it. But I do think the more you can work with SSDs and the more you can consolidate.
Yeah.
I feel like you do want to simplify your Lightroom catalog to where you don't want to have to count on your memory, to tell you where everything is. Like, it's that, because you're just not going to remember everything. But the more you can streamline the process, especially if you're somebody who travels and you have a laptop and then you have a desktop and you're, carrying around one drive that has everything on it, it can be very sluggish.
Yeah. But, well, you say that, but I mean, carrying around one drive with everything on it, or everything current on it, is really nice to be able to move between a desktop and a laptop. And
current for sure. But things from like 2013, right. I don't.
Yeah, travel is a whole different story, but I do with just about everything on my desktop, all my heavy lifting editing. And
yeah, it's true.
I love, I use an external, I use a LaCie external here, and I love it because it's got 2012, 2013, 2014, and then subcat.
Yeah.
There. It's so nice to just work off of one.
I agree.
System or one library.
Yeah. John says maybe his Lightroom catalog isn't big enough, but he doesn't find that it crawls. Hasn't been an issue in years. I will say that my Lightroom has been fast enough, and like David, I've moved to an SSD. That helps. But there is this lag of when you go into a photo, even in my smaller catalog, of fully loading it, there is that loading bit, and then it goes away, but it's still not sharp. There's another like, I don't know, 4 or 5 seconds that a noticeable wait time for it to pop into focus for you to tell if it's sharp or whether you want to work on it. And yes, my archive catalog, when I go back to find 2013 to 20, that is very slow.
Yeah. The real killer for me is when you get into painting or filters and stuff. Oh,
I don't seem to have that issue anymore right now, I say, because it comes and goes. But in the last 2 minor updates from Lightroom, it has seemed to fix that for me. There was a period where I was painting and there was just lag after the brush. So you're still getting that, Steve?
Well, I ended up just taking everything into Photoshop and using Camera Raw because which is interesting because you think the engine is the same as Lightroom, but it's got to be different. And I do my graduated filters in there. I do my painting. I do whatever I need to do in Camera Raw. It's just way more responsive. So
yeah. Brian says it's a lot of old code in Lightroom, and that technical debt drags it down. I agree. I mean, I think I don't know anything about code, but it does feel like that's got to be what it is. Because Lightroom in theory and in concept is awesome. It just, if it worked as quickly as Photoshop, we'd be high-fiving, it's just when I get it into Photoshop, I'm like, oh, I can breathe now because everything I do happens instantly. And I don't hear my fan coming on, and it's just magic, so
I've been actually thinking of just going to my own catalog system and just using Photoshop. But then the drag is you got to save along the way. And I've gotten so accustomed to
there's a lot of great stuff that Lightroom does. Yeah. And
absolutely.
And comfort is for many of us the big one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's switch gears. And let's talk a little bit. We thought this would be fun to share, or I did. And you guys seem to agree. We are limited in our travel right now, and it's kind of wild that as we look at this calendar and realize when I might be traveling again, this will definitely be the longest stretch without any kind of travel in the last 5-6 years. That's just what it is. So I thought it would be fun to share where we have traveled that we really, really meant something to us, this is an open discussion, was just photographically and photogenically amazing. And I don't know, either of you want to go first, or you want me to?
I'd be happy to start. I've been given this since you posed the question a couple days ago. So there's a couple of different categories that I started thinking about, and it's interesting because all the time, and both of you guys could probably attest to this. I know Toby can. Almost every tour, we get somebody who asks, "What's the best place you've been to?" or "What's your favorite trip?" Because you've done so many of them. And I've ended up categorizing them like the most surreal experience, or the best people, or my favorite landscapes, or the best wildlife and stuff. But I'll say that photographically, the highlight of my career shooting on tours has been the polar bear on the Arctic a couple of years ago, who was affectionately named Bernice, I think was her name that clients on the tour gave, because we weren't seeing anything. We saw these polar bears way out there, and nobody was getting a good shot and stuff. And we were already a few days into the tour, and it was just looking like a bust. And then all of a sudden, there was a sighting at about 11 o'clock at night. The sun didn't go down. We got in the Zodiacs, went out. So it was about midnight, and we're shooting, and the light was just stunning. The polar bear was beautiful, and she was performing for us on camera, and we had hours to just shoot. It was the most amazing experience. So that was the best photographically. And then Yeah, there we go. That was I won an award from DPA last year on that image.
You did, and then go. You keep talking, but I actually had to dig this out, not for this conversation, but somebody else. And there are several of your pictures in here.
Yeah. There she was like playing around in the snow, and we didn't do a whole lot of editing to those pictures.
Yeah.
And so that was photographically the most special moment I've ever had with a camera in my hand. One of my favorite memories, though, of all tours, first of all, Iceland is my happy place. It's always my favorite place to go, just generally speaking. But Toby, you don't even probably know this. There was, I mean, you know it, but you don't know this was such a special moment to me. There was a moment where we stopped. I can't remember if we were in the West Fjords or the mainland of Iceland. And we looked out in this field, and there was that giant teeter-totter out there. We ran out there, and we jumped on the teeter-totter, and we took some videos, and some people were taking pictures of us. Just, here I am with one of my best buds, and we're in my favorite country of all, and we're just on this teeter-totter in the middle of this beautiful field on a gorgeous day. And it was just one of these memories that every time I look at that photograph that Lori Myers did of us, it makes me, I wish that I felt that way all the time in terms of just being a kid, in a really cool place. So
that's fantastic.
That was a very, very special moment for me.
That's awesome.
That's cool. That really is. I'm trying and failing to find that picture in Lori. I'm not sure where it went.
People, and you and I are just like, dude, you see that teeter-totter out there? And we just go running out there, and we going up and down and taking videos and stuff. It was fun. It was awesome.
Yeah. David Carr, how about you?
I think hands down, Antarctica was my favorite place I've ever been. For numerous reasons. I mean, the cruise, the tour, just going with Poseidon Expeditions and just being on the boat alone was so much fun. And just, heading towards this totally exotic, otherworldly kind of place. It just, I always tell people it felt like we were on another planet. It just felt so removed, and it really is. But it felt removed from even the Earth, and arriving and seeing penguins like in their habitat, just thousands of penguins. It felt like we had arrived on another planet, and these were the inhabitants of that planet. Just something. Oh, there you go. There's one of my shots of the cute little penguins. But what's interesting is like that trip, if we had not even gotten off the boat, it still would have been an awesome trip. Just seeing the things we saw from the boat, and so much of what I appreciate about these trips is it's the people, it's being with the people. There's this camaraderie and this sense of family. And so the photographs are like the icing on the cake to me. And for some reason, Antarctica just was like a combination of so much good stuff. And then the photographic moments, just breathtaking. I just couldn't believe what we were seeing. It was fantastic, just fantastic. And I've been to a lot of places, but that was just by far just amazing.
Yeah. I love that shot right there, Carr.
Thank you. This was the, and I have a slightly updated version of this one, but that's one I definitely want to print out, do a nice big print of. I'm very happy with it. It just kind of sums up the awe of what we saw, and there's no wildlife in that shot, but that's just it was just so breathtaking.
Yeah. And I don't know, I'll expose my ignorance. I definitely didn't think about landscape photography on my way to Antarctica or when I knew I was going. There wasn't, Steve, you went before either of us, and my my amazement at your images that you came back was just wildlife. And I was like, holy crap, this is an icy Tanzania. I mean, it's just amazing how much there is and how close you are.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you have that, but you also have these amazing backdrops of.
See, I had the exact opposite experience. I couldn't wait to shoot the landscapes down there and the icebergs and stuff.
Yep.
And I was simply blown away at the amount of wildlife that we got to see. So that's probably I saw a lot of that.
Yeah.
So totally opposite expectation going into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
And I like that I figured out how to take us straight away from a screenshot to the non-Brady Bunch one just now after,
I did messenger you that teeter-totter picture.
Oh, nice.
At least a version of it.
I saw it, yeah.
I think it was my cover shot on Facebook for a little while. That's where I pulled it from.
Toby, that's my life, man. Figuring out how to do stuff like way late in the game. Oh, you can crop in Lightroom?
Yeah, that's so much fun. And Steve, you are just like
video you took.
Yeah, I got that video somewhere.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's probably shakier than I want it to be.
That's how I know. That's totally legit right there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I pose this question, and as you said, Steve, we are often asked on trips favorite locations, and Iceland is just such a beautiful photogenic spot. But I think what really hit me in being so lucky to travel was one of the mornings on my very first time to Tanzania, waking up and just sleeping in the Serengeti. Which all of us have done now. All of us have been on a safari at least once. And it's just such a special and cool thing to be there in that place and surrounded. And, I asked some other people, and Pam Case also mentioned Tanzania, because not only is it the animals, but it's the people there that you meet as well. And that's just a very special place. But if I have to pick just a single moment, and it might be because it's fairly recent, but I think more than the photos, for me, it was about the sounds. And that is the most recent Mongolia trip, which, was, neither of you have been on. Steve, you've gone to Mongolia, David Carr, not yet, was standing on the mountaintop above the Eagle Festival, surrounded by all of the eagle hunters with their eagles. Horses were up on this mountaintop, and the sounds of the festival down below was so cool. Distant, there are some people drumming, you could hear people cheering, you could just hear chatter, you heard a camel making noises, and just all of that just kind of coming up to the top of this mountain that already was amazing. And that mix, to me, just it makes the hairs on my neck stand up a little. It was just, I was like, wow,
that's cool.
This is cool.
Yeah.
So, but I feel so, because the polar regions, as you said, Steve, just, oh man, I feel drawn especially to those. But that one moment, I'm going to pick that Mongolia moment. And,
cool.
Looking forward to when we all can travel a little bit more. Real quick, I put this out there. Pam, I said Tanzania. Dave M says Bishop Pass, Eastern Sierra Mountains. Now this is more of like their photo destination where they really love to get photos from. So I've never been there. Bishop Pass, Eastern Sierras. Dave or Steve, you have?
Yeah, I rode actually my motorcycle through there a number of years ago. Renee and I did together on a trip back from Torrey, Utah, which is where Capitol Reef National Park is. And we went down to oh gosh, I'm just not doing well tonight on remembering things. But Death Valley. We're down to Death Valley, and then we did a bunch of riding down there and stuff. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Cool. Very cool. Karen Limbaugh says she's got two destinations, Israel and the Sydney side of Australia up into the Blue Mountains.
Yeah. I'd love to get there someday.
Chat, have any of you been chiming in? Have you said anything? Becky, you said Antarctica. It's probably one of your favorite trips. And I love that Jason Troyer called out seeing and smelling the penguins. Because,
yeah.
Oh, gosh.
That just reminded me. I was going to tell the chat room about this. There is a documentary that I've talked about before. It's called Antarctica, A Year on Ice. It's a few years old now, and it's now on Netflix, I believe. It's on one of the one of the services, Netflix or Hulu. I'm like 98% sure it's Netflix. And it's kind of come and gone. And for a long time, you couldn't watch it unless you bought it. So highly recommend you guys check that out. It's great. It's the first time I watched a documentary where I've been my eyes have been open to the smell of all the penguins and stuff. This guy has been down to Antarctica. He does time-lapse videos. Jason Troyer, you would absolutely love this if you haven't seen it already. That's kind of his specialty. And he did all these trips down there 6 months at a time. And he basically documented what it would be like to live there at I think it's the New Zealand station that he goes to for 1 year. And it's truly incredible.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I'm a sucker for those kind of documentaries.
Yeah, you would absolutely love it. It got me. I always wanted to go to Antarctica just to say I went to Antarctica, but once I watched that, I just really wanted to go.
Well, that's exactly how it was for me. Like I was like, well, I just want to be able to say I went there. Yeah. Because it's like bragging rights. But then you go and you're like, holy cow, this place is incredible. I mean,
it's unbelievable.
It's just so untouched. You know, I was just like, I remember looking at these mountains and going like, there's like probably no one has ever walked on that mountain, like, or, you know, that one or that one. It's like, it's incredible. Just this pristine, untouched area of the earth. And, you know, just in hearing us talk about all these favorite places we've been, I mean, the earth is amazing. Like there's so much texture and diversity to what is here. It's worth preserving, you know. I don't know. I think the more we travel, the more I get an appreciation for this place is incredible.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Well said. Steve, do you want to make a year on ice your pick? Because we are wrapping this show up.
I can't think of anything that I've been really diehard into. So yeah, do that. Antarctica, Year on Ice documentary. Definitely check it out.
Very cool. Okay. And if you haven't watched the show a while, we started this new thing where we just share something that we've been up to or into that we want to share with you all. Has possibly nothing to do with photography or everything or somewhere in between. David Carr, you got anything in mind?
Well, I am constantly fixing things. Like I'm just a repair. I love fixing broken things. So I've been fixing. It feels like every day there's something new I have to fix. We have a pool, which I love, but it's a saltwater pool, and there's this thing that turns salt into chlorine, and it's super expensive to replace, and it broke, and I did not want to buy a new one, so I just hacked the system and figured out a way to fix it. So I did that. Then my wife's MacBook needed a new keyboard.
I saw that. I saw your picture of that.
Yeah.
That was serious.
Yeah, I've never done that before. But it needed a new keyboard and a new battery. And I was like, eBay, let me see if anybody's selling. And I found a keyboard and a battery, brand new, Apple, like not some aftermarket. And just took my time with YouTube and really took my time, and I broke a cable in the process, had to order a new cable, but it's all those parts are available and they're not that expensive. And it's really, honestly, not that hard. You just have to be careful and slow about it. And it works. And it's like a sense of accomplishment. So I've just been, I don't want to keep fixing things because I'd like for things to work, but it's been fun to just
certainly
give me that sense of accomplishment.
Very nice. Cool. I'm going to share two things. One is if you're stuck at home and your libraries are closed, like they are here in the Seattle area, you probably have access through your library to ebooks. And our library system, it's an app. I think other library systems use it too. It's called Libby, Libby. You kind of sign into the app, you use your library card, and then there are books to check out. And I have found that during this time, the waiting list for popular titles has skyrocketed. But all you do is say, oh, that looks like a good book. You say borrow, and if it's available, boom, it's on your device, or you can even pass it to a Kindle if you have a Kindle. Better. I know some people don't like reading on their phone, and I know some people don't like reading books, but this opens up a lot more opportunities for books. And if it's not available, it just gets put on hold, and then eventually it notifies you and says it's available now. And I was started to read a new book by David McCullough. It's an old book. It's new to me, by David McCullough. And I realized that I may have read, he might be my most read author out of all of the other
He's
books.
awesome.
Unless you like David, whoever wrote the Berenstain Bears as a kid, maybe I read more of those. I don't know. But as an adult, yes, how the Panama Canal, the Brooklyn Bridge, the Johnstown Flood. I'm reading now Morning on Horseback, the Wright Brothers, Pioneers. They are just incredibly well-written books that turn a subject like the building of the Panama Canal might sound a little dry and boring, and it's a huge book, but it was an easy, fast read because it's just fascinating. Everything from the number of poor people that were building it that got malaria to the whole idea that originally they were going to dig a canal straight through the mountains, like 2,000 foot tall mountains. They were just going to dig a canal right through them. That was the original plan. And so I would strongly recommend checking out Libby and seeing if any David McCullough books are available.
Hey, I have a question about that, though.
Yeah.
As somebody that has not used that service before, if it's an electronic version of the book, why would it not be available?
I think because of rules.
Oh.
I think because, the way I don't actually know how, it works with the libraries, but, they only have like 4 copies. I think they're only allowed to have, 4 digital copies of this to lend out.
I think that's what it is. I've heard about this, and I was asking the same question, but
yeah. And I'm not sure how I feel as a content creator. I think I understand that you don't want your a means for people to legally and freely, unlimitedly get your book. But then on the other hand, it's kind of nice as a user.
Timmy Scott says the libraries buy licenses like they buy physical books. Okay, that makes sense. Actually, I'm in full support of that because you don't want them just. I don't know. It was just something that I hadn't really thought of before, and then all of a sudden you said that it's not available. I'm like, it's a digital copy. Why wouldn't it be available? But that makes sense.
I was for years ago. I was thinking about opening a used digital music store. So whatever I downloaded, I'll just sell it used for like.
Hey, shout out to what Brian Scanlon is saying. I was literally thinking about this, Toby, when you were talking about McCullough. Eric Larson, Devil in the White City. I'm like 3/4 of the way into that book right now. It's outstanding, and I want to read his other works. He is just an awesome storyteller, talking about a lot of it's about the World's Fair in Chicago. It's the first serial murderer really in the world.
Yeah. I think Chris has read that.
How this was all going on while they were building the World's Fair and stuff. It's an outstanding book, and now I really want to read more of his stuff. I was totally thinking about Eric Larson when you were talking about McCullough.
And then Becky Miller recommends for those who are fascinated by Antarctica, good books on the subject, A Wretched and Precarious Situation and South by Ernest Shackleton. And of course, the story of the Endurance. Shackleton's journey is amazing down there as well. Lots of great content, and check it out. Okay, I think we are done with the show. Chat room, thanks so much for hanging out with us. As always, your comments and witty, some word that's witty that I can't come up with right now. Your witty addendums.
Quips.
Make this show so much better because clearly I'm at a loss for words. And Steve, David, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. If you're watching the show and you haven't followed these guys yet, please, there are links to their Instagrams and Facebooks and YouTube channels is all right down below this video. Go check that stuff out. And I appreciate you guys doing that.
Just a couple of crazy guys.
That's right. And so I think all be back next week because what else are we going to do? And we'll be talking about, last week we talked about gear that changed our lives. How about next week we totally flip it? Pieces of gear we bought that are just turned out to be total junk, worthless, or changed our lives for the worst.
Like it.
We could speak a whole hour and a half about being penny wise and pound foolish.
Yeah.
I heard that sneeze.
I'm kidding. I'm joking. I loved my Leica. What'd you say?
And I love that camera when you have
I did too. Whatever. We'll talk about it next week.
If you're a Leica owner and you want to send hate mail, David's contact information.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love Leica. I just didn't use it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll be back again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.